the bills that I signed just a week ago in relationship to the anxiety around supply, security, and affordability. And I appreciate the legislature's sense of urgency to address that issue in a very comprehensive way this year.
$12 a gallon. That's my prediction. Not 8, not 10, $12 a gallon by Christmas.
Where is California going to get its gas?
Gas in California right now, today, $4.62. 2 weeks ago, $4.20. That's 42 cents in 2 weeks.
The refinery in question is in the town of Benicia. They got a heavy fine for toxic emissions this year and from California, and they decided to shut it down.
Now, the experts, the USC professors, the UC Davis economists, they're all predicting $8 by the end of the year. $8. And everyone's losing their minds over 8. I think they're low.
400 jobs lost, as well as a lot of tax revenue. That leaves just 6 refineries left in the state of California after the shutdown of a Phillips 66 refinery there earlier this year.
40 cents in 2 weeks. That's 80 cents in a month. There are 10 months until Christmas. 80 cents times 10, $8. $8 on top of the $4.62 that you're paying right now. That's $12.62 a gallon. That's $180.
Why here in California is the average gallon of gas about $4.70, and that's on the low end.
Over the last few weeks, Governor Gavin Newsom has been signing bills that he says promises to bring down electricity costs, stabilize the petroleum market, and cut down on air pollution. One of the bills is AB 30, designed to bring down the cost of gas by making an ethanol blend, or E15, available, while the state studies its environmental impacts.
Some gas stations in this state are shockingly as high as $7 a gallon.
And you know, if you've been following News for Reasonable People, we talk a lot about California's gasoline issue. And I've had some very notable folks that are, experts on this topic. I'm a real estate guy. I'm from Washington State. I'm from Bellevue, Washington. But I'm not afraid to kind of dig in and do some research. And we're at that point now with the blame game, because we've gone from wintertime. We've gone to, we're rapidly getting to that point where the summer blend is going to be required. Prices always spike. You're going to have more demand. And we've just had 2 more refineries in California basically say no mas. Benicia, Valero, and Phillips 66. They've both shut down, somewhere between 17 and 22% of production in California. And now the blame game starts. So new California gas price spike is the fault of Newsom's Energy Commission's oversight failure. So this is on the Energy Commission. It's their oversight failure. Legislative hearings are warranted, says Consumer Watchdog. We're going to go through a bunch of stuff related to this, but I want to get through this one first, because this is nonsense. Consumer Watchdog said today that the California Energy Commission was not using the powers the legislature granted several years ago to stem a current gasoline price spike. All the damage has already been done. You've hammered on oil, big oil, for decades and decades. And big oil is like, you know what? Screw it. If we got to spend $1 billion, and no lie, Valero spent $1 billion shutting down its Benicia refinery. $1 billion to close down a component of their business. You've pushed them out. Any kind of nonsense that you do with your legislature right now, it's going to go nowhere. It's not going to do anything. The damage is done. You've reduced the supply. Now watch gas prices spike to the moon, and everybody's going to go, it's his fault. It's their fault. It's her fault. It's your fault. It's never my fault. The average California gas price is $4.58 a gallon. That's actually, when was this written? February 19th, so last Thursday. It's actually gone up since then. It's in the 460s. $1.66 per gallon more than the average U.S. gasoline price of $2.92. Okay, so I was in Oklahoma City last week. That's why you had some interruptions to your normal flow of 2 a day. I was in Oklahoma City last week. Gasoline there was $2.19 a gallon. consistently $2.19. My mom said that I missed, she meant to take a photo of $1.99 gas. They had it for a split second, but things have gone up a little bit in $2.19. I drove from Oklahoma City into Dallas, Texas, and gas there was more like $2.69 a gallon. So still well under $3. Here in Washington State, we've got the second highest gasoline, and we're just about $5 a gallon. I mean, it's expensive. I filled up my rental car in Oklahoma City at a 12-gallon tank, and I was just shy of 12 gallons, and it came out to $23.75. So whatever that math was, under $25 to fill up a rental. And we were down, you have a whole bunch of bars. It was one of those hybrid cars. And so it went a long, long way. And I was there. I had a whole bunch of bars, and then it went down to one. So I was like, okay, I'm not getting stuck on the side of the road here in North Texas. Let's get some gas. And $25 to fill it up. It's like, what? This is so cheap. And it would have been even cheaper had I filled up in Oklahoma. So, just nuts. California is experiencing another gasoline price spike, and the inaction of the California Energy Commission is in no small part to blame, Consumer Watchdog said. You know what? California Consumer Energy Commission was tasked with finding a buyer for this refinery that Valero said, no, we're closing her down. And you know what? They couldn't come up with the buyer. Shocker, right? Shocker. The damage is already done. The refineries are already closed. One way for gas prices to go, and it's not down. We call upon you to hold oversight hearings to address the failure of the California Energy Commission to enforce its agreement with Valero to keep its Benicia refinery running through April. Okay, so let's focus on that for a second. This article is written because, oh my gosh, things are going crazy. We got to blame somebody. Let's blame the California Energy Commission. Even if you did that, it's only good through April, because that's when Valero said that they were going to close down the Benicia refinery. They ended up closing at the very tail end of January, just a few weeks ago. Not 3 weeks ago. Closed her down. We did the podcast on that. The cameras that can kind of locate energy, they're cold. It was cold. So, and to write rules for minimum inventory and resupply arrangements, a cause of the current gas price spikes. You guys are a day late, dollar short. Sorry. I mean, you should have been whining about this earlier. It wouldn't have got anywhere, because Newsom basically came out and said, we're working with the refinery to make sure we have adequate supplies on hand. Meaning, they're pulling in gas from the Bahamas. I was explaining this to my mom, who's in Oklahoma City. She's from Australia. She lived in London many years. And I'm telling her, okay, yeah. So we go from like, call it Houston, right? We go from oil in the refinery, gets refined, gasoline. You ship it from Houston to the Bahamas, right? And then you put it on another ship that is okay to do business with the United States due to the Johnson Act, and then you ship it from the Bahamas through the Panama Canal up to California. That's how you're backfilling currently the loss of refinery from the Benicia deal closing down. And she just kind of looked at me like, yeah, this is what we're doing. It makes no sense. Try explaining that to somebody from Oklahoma. This is what you're doing. Let's see, we got gas going from here to there to there. It makes no sense. But that's because closing all these refineries and basically pushing out big oil, that's what happens. Valero notified the CEC a year in advance of the plans to shutter Benicia. We all know how that went. There's a bunch of stuff here complaining about capacity and, oh my God, things are going through the roof. This is creating a perfect storm, driving gas price spikes. 2 Northern California refineries being offline at the same time. This is the very situation the CEC was supposed to use its powers to avoid. It's got a empty gun. You got an empty gun and you got no bullets. So you can run around with your gun and go, I'm going to shoot you. But if everybody knows you don't have any bullets in your gun, you're a paper tiger, right? It's just absolute insanity. So the commission needs to explain itself and articulate a plan to do better for consumers in the future. Right? I mean, it's mind-boggling. California Energy Commission responds to criticism over gas prices. You know, you can hold the California Energy Commission responsible. You can hold Newsom responsible. You can hold a whole bunch of people responsible. But the bottom line is, damage is done. This is a situation. And this is a regressive tax because those who can least afford it, people on the lower socioeconomic end, they got to fill up their cars to get to work because they need to pay those bills. They have the least amount of money. Spiking gas prices is a regressive tax on those hardworking Americans who deserve better. But you know what? This is what you get in California. You know, I was watching a short video and somebody was like, yeah, I don't really care what the price of gas is because what am I going to do? Walk? Fair enough. Fair enough. But you don't have to pay California gas prices, right? You walk your vote, right? I'm voting to walk to Oklahoma City. That's my walk, right? I'm leaving Washington, second highest gas prices in the United States. We have higher gas prices in Washington State right now than Hawaii, where everything gets shipped in. Hawaii. It's nuts because we have this cap and trade, ridiculous carbon emission, just a bunch of nonsense. It's so annoying. So annoying. Instead, the CEC is focusing on strengthening market transparency and monitoring supply conditions. You know, even these articles just bore me to tears because they're all the same. You know, we've got another refinery closing. It's got to reduce the supply and gas prices are going to go up. But we're going to blame, we're going to blame, we're going to blame, And then all we're really left with is how much is gas going to go up? It's insanity, right? How about this one? How about this one? This is funny. It's what I was just talking about. In Governor Newsom's California, it makes sense to get gasoline from the Bahamas. Now, Gavin Newsom is out on the, I'm looking at my cheat sheet here right now. Gosh darn it. I'm trying to think of the name of Gavin Newsom's book, and I can't recall what it is, but it's something. He's out on a book tour right now. Gavin Newsom's book got released today, Tuesday. February, whatever. What are we? I flew in on the 22nd, 23rd, so February 24th. And instead of dealing with these kind of issues, Gavin Newsom is out. He's out, extolling the virtues of his book so that he can make a run for president. Because, you know, Kamala Harris had her book, 107 days, ... She spent $1.5 billion in 107 days and lost every single swing state. I bought that book because I needed to know, how do you do that? I read it, so you don't have to. I will also read Gavin Newsom's book. You owe me. And I'll report back on that one as well. This story is baffling. Bloomberg reports that California is starting to import gasoline from the Bahamas. While the state sits on enormous oil resources, it refuses to develop. That's the story. That's all you need to know. It's just insanity. It's virtue signaling insanity. It's like the last podcast I did, I was talking about how Oregon is looking at outlawing hunting, fishing, trapping, and pest control. Just some libtard insanity. Some absolute mind-blowing insanity that if you enact that, I mean, I don't know if you've ever been to Oregon, but there's a lot of hunting. It's on the coast. Got a lot of fishing. Got a lot of rivers. You got a lot of lakes. I mean, you got bugs there too. You know what I mean? You're going to have to do some pest control because that's just part of life. You're going to outlaw all that. And also the way that, like horses and livestock are inseminated. They're saying that that's sexual trauma. Just some crazy stuff because they don't believe in eating animals. All right, why don't you just go on your merry way and do your thing? But unfortunately, here in California, this impacts the entire economy. And it's not just California. Nevada gets 88% of its oil products from California. Arizona, same deal. And then we've got the whole West Coast deal, right? Where California's refusal to go after the oil that's already in its own ground is creating a situation where you've got some real defense issues. If a war breaks out, you've got some real major West Coast defense issues because all of a sudden you don't have enough fuel to run things. Here's a good article from Katie Grimes. She writes for the California Globe. While Newsom fiddles, California's gas and oil crisis ramps up with tensions between the U.S. and Iran. And you got all kinds of stuff going on. California has no inbound pipelines supplying crude oil, gas, or aviation fuels. 95% of California's inbound crude and gasoline supplies are delivered by maritime tankers, the majority of which are not U.S.-flagged vessels, including tanker ships owned by Russia's CFC Group and China's Costco Energy China. And that was from Stan Ellis. We had Stan Ellis on the show here not long ago with Micah Riza. Micah Riza is also named in this article earlier on. Petroleum expert Micah Riza told the Globe Valero refinery closure will have more of an impact on the California region. That's because it should be open for business, and it's not. India is providing crude oil and gas supplies to California, and Russia and China are delivering it. How is that for U.S. security? Like, what? Say we have just a little bit of conflict with Russia or China or India, and they say, yeah, no more oil for you. And what do? Guys, we're kind of stuck here. Pretty please? And I'll pay you on Tuesday for a sandwich today. The ratcheting up of tensions between the U.S. and Iran could push an already red-hot supertanker market even higher, with rates soaring to the highest level since 2019. So your rates on the supertankers translate to rates at the pump. The pumps don't magically go, you know what, we're going to jump prices. They are part of a process, right? It's part of a process. And if you have any one little piece of the puzzle go sideways on you, a fire at a refinery, a close down for maintenance, a big storm rolls through and the ships, the oil tankers can't make it through. Any one of those things. You've got an issue at the docks in LA where they pull in because you got to import all your oil products. Any one of those things can just boop, send it to the moon. And we're already headed that way, right? And here's another one. This is that defense component. Armies march on their stomachs. Oil ensures victories. What does that mean? It sounds like, what in the hell? You're talking about logistics. You're talking about supplies. You're talking about feeding your army. You got to have food in their stomachs to march, right? So it's a logistical supply. Oil ensures victories. So I've got a segment here. The Iran crisis alone has employed a third of our naval forces and almost a quarter of our air forces. From a logistics perspective, these forces have one thing in common. They need gas, lots of gas. California, Nevada, and Arizona have 40 military installations combined. 32 of them are in California, yet all three states depend on California refineries. In oil production, the story is just as grim. 1988, Gold State produced all of its oil needs minus 4.5%. Basically all of it. Today, state produces less than 23%, and it basically imports everything it needs. No logistics PhDs or defense experts are required to see the obvious. Even a real estate guy can kind of interpret this and go, this isn't looking good. This isn't going in the right direction. California's mismanagement of energy policy leaves our entire nation vulnerable to foreign adversaries. And this is Brigadier General Blaine Holt, retired. Brigadier General Blaine Holt. He's on Newsmax. He's been on a bunch of media. Let's skip down here. Let's add in the following factors to the state that we're in. Phillips 66 closure, Benicia, military is underway globally, burning gas at record levels. Okay, trucking companies are failing due to high fuel costs, insurance, and inflation. Almost 20 in the last 12 months. Looming liquidity crisis. Fed has infused over $200 billion into big bank balance sheets. Unrealized losses on the books. Major U.S. cities and suburban areas, on average, here's a good one. This is something that I've talked with Mike Ariza about. Major U.S. cities and suburban areas, on average, will only have 3 to 4 days of food, water, and subsistence items with any major disruption to the U.S. transportation system. 3 to 4 days. All right, so that's Monday through Thursday. What happens on Sunday? Civil unrest. Hey, got no food. What are we going to do? When's the next shipment coming? Yeah, let's start looting. I mean, they looted over George Floyd, right? Why wouldn't they loot over no grocery stores getting food supplies in? Yeah, that's what you're going to see. Open borders have enabled the bed down of every terror group on the planet in our nation, to include the cartels. I forget what IRGC stands for, but it's not good. It's Islamic, right? Republican Guard Corp, something like that. And you've also got the Chinese. You got a bunch of terrorist groups hanging out in the United States that Biden let in. They're here. I mean, you want to see them rise up? Complicate matters even more? They're already here, right? They're already here. So, the whole deal is teetering at best. And you can go on to blame the Energy Commission, but what you need to really blame is California politics for decades and decades that have basically pushed out big oil, left the West Coast exposed, left consumers to whatever gasoline's going to go to, even though there's plenty of it in the ground in California. But California wants to virtue signal how clean they are. And as a result, if you're in California, your gasoline's going to go through the roof. Do you feel better? You feel better about your clean environment? Meanwhile, literally, China and India are just billowing emissions into the sky. It doesn't make a lot of sense, does it? I mean, it makes no sense whatsoever. But I don't virtue signal how green I am. I'm more of a realist. All right, we're going to need to have these resources for the next multiple decades. There's no way the energy grid's going to be able to take care of everything without oil. So we're stuck with it, whether you want to be clean and, environmentally conscious or not. You're stuck with it. You just are. So deal with it. So how you want to deal with it? Oh, let's just have the refineries close down a bunch more refineries and we'll see how that goes. Well, we're seeing how that goes. To the moon. $12 gas? $8 gas? $6 gas? $6 gas for sure. $6 gas by summer for sure. I think it could go to $8. And then that's when people start looking at this stuff going, oh, hey, what are we doing? What's going on? Why is gas so much? Well, you didn't subscribe to News for Reasonable People because we've covered this 10 ways from Sunday, and we're going to continue to keep doing that. All right. Thanks so much for being here. I'd love to have you subscribe if you haven't already. Hit that notification bell. I'll see you in the next one. Bye for now.